Hello everyone and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. So we're going to be introducing you to Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duels. I know it's been a while since the game has been released, but I'm playing with an absolutely fresh account. I have a backup account which is my original account that's on my phone, but we're going to be playing as a brand new account just so we can see and help guide others, maybe have some fun as well, enjoy the game. I tend to do some more short form content. Mine's usually about 10 minutes. It's a mid-range video. So I'm going to be testing out some of these longer time videos as well, just to see how my audience responds to this. If you enjoy them, I will be continuing with them. If not, I still probably do them time to time, but I'll try and not have them too heavily within the videos that I upload. I will have also some shorts coming out quite soon. Those are going to be looking at the series that I've done in the past, which is the Yu-Gi-Oh advantages and disadvantages, and I'll be covering some of the topics around various cards. I'll do two formats. I'll have the one with the advantage and the one with the disadvantage. One's hopefully going to be posted on a Monday and the other will be a Friday, so you get a in the round type of opinion. And as you can see, we're starting off with the practice duel. That's where you start off with, and you can get some rewards for that, the 500 gems. It's a standardized duel, and there's nothing particularly that tricky to understand. Even if you're a beginner, for me, I'm not. I have been playing the game since it originally came out. My first pack that I got was I think it was Metal Raiders, and some of the cards in there I still remember to this day. My favourite out of the pack, which I got, was the twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Obviously, at the age I think I was about 13, I didn't realise how you summoned it. I didn't realise that you needed two Thunder Dragons and that you needed a polymerization card. I didn't actually get a Thunder Dragon in the end either, so it wasn't useful. I couldn't actually summon the card. It was just my favourite from that pack. Another card that I got, which was not that good, was Trent. A 1500 attack, 1800 defense monster, but it's a level 5. For the time it was okay, but now it would just be laughed at. I had Morinfen, which is 1550 attack. I also got one of the best cards in the game at that time in terms of packs. It was the 7-colored fish, which was the highest attacking monster you could have, which was non-tributing. As you can see from this, we've got our World Chalice monster, and we're using Smashing Ground, the spell card, to remove Neon Bug from the duel, to send it to the graveyard, and we'll be attacking directly. Another quick story I have is to do with the second pack I got, which was a Spell Raiders, a Spell Ruler, and it used to be called a Magic Ruler when I initially got it, when they made the changes. And in that, I remember getting a Beaver Warrior. I had a McDonald's with me, and unfortunately the Coke spilled over the pack, so I did end up with some damaged cards when I was opening them. It's fine. I mean, I've got probably well over 15 to 20,000 cards in total, including a couple of Ghost Rares, which I really enjoy. That's the luxury of being an adult. I don't have to confine to whatever my parents say anymore. I can kind of spend as I please, well within budget. This is the second duel, so we'll have Skill Successor, which we'll be asked to place face down, and we'll summon the Chosen by the World Chalice in attack mode. Skill Successor adds 400 attack points to your monster during your turn. However, if you have it in the graveyard, you can then banish it to increase your monster's attack points by 800. So it has a double effect. My opponent has the Angel Trumpeter, which is a 1900 attack tuna monster. So it indicates for us to activate Skill Successor. And it's just slightly more powerful by being 100 points more. I draw into Blade Knight, of which I'm going to summon now after activating Skill Successor. and we'll just clear the game by attacking with both monsters. So that's the second stage completed. And in this case, we actually unlock the decks. Now we have a full starting hand for this third version. So we'll have the two World Chalice monsters, we have Smashing Ground, we've got Sorcerer, Spell Wall, and we've got Dust Tornado. This is a free-for-all duel, you can play it however you wish, but I think that's probably the optimum play. The field spell boosts your monster's attack points by 300 during your turn, and your 300 defense points during your opponent's turn. My opponent activates D-Spell to destroy my field spell, and they summon Curry Bandit and set a card face down. I activate my Dust Tornado during the end phase so that they don't have a chance to use it if it happens to be a trap card, and it's just Castle Walls. That's a card similar to Reinforcements, but in this case it boosts your monster's defense points by 500. Curry Bandit's effect means it leaves the field, and then it flips over 5 cards. If you get any spell or trap cards within those selections, you're then able to choose one of them to add to the hand. Everything else goes to the graveyard. I've drawn into Tune Warrior, which is a tuner monster, so that's useful if you're aiming to synchro summon. I opt to go for the Link monster, which to my extent I'm not too familiar with Link monsters. I know how they work roughly, but I don't really play too much during this era. It would have made more sense for me to have attacked with the two monsters I had first, and then Link summon into this card later on. I would have done a little bit more damage. My opponent summons Bitron, which has 100 attack points more, destroying my Defender of the Labyrinth, but triggering its effect at the same time, enabling me to summon my World Chalice monster back from the graveyard. I draw into Ballista Squad, which is fine, but at the time it's not useful. I'll use Smashing Ground instead to destroy their monster, and normal summon Tune Warrior. There are so many cards and duelists ready for you to discover. Grab your new deck and venture out into the wide world of dueling. So we have 3 choices to go for. We've got the Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, which is a generic dragon deck. We've got a synchro deck, and we've got a link deck. For me, because I grew up in the dragon kind of era, I would go with the Blue Eyes White Dragon style of deck, just because I'm the most confident with it. And we're just going to skip through the download because it was a massive download itself. It just took ages. It took at least 5 to 10 minutes to download everything. We have plenty of gems to kind of look into, so we'll first start by collecting the reward we've already got. That's an extra 1,500 or so gems. I decided to use the random pack. I prefer those rather than the other two sets. I love the randomness of the packs and what you're generally going to get. And with the higher variety, it means you can build better decks in combination with each other. So we've got an Etruria in there, we've got a number monster, there's a couple of other cards, there's a Grand Convergence, which is some type of banishing type of support. We have a legendary ocean, mythic wood dragon. There is a generator monster in there, a Jurassic Impact trap card. There's a super heavy samurai, a blue eyes toon dragon, a vision hero, and I think it's a zeal card in there. There's a Gagaga Caesar in there. This one, there's a Performer Pal in there. You've also got one of the Nordic Aesir monsters and a Plunder Patrol. This, we've got Cycroid, we've got some very random cards. We've got that Soul Carrier monster, which is another super heavy samurai support card. There's an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, there's an Odd Eyes, that's fine, and an Infernity Dwarf. There's a Plague Spreader Zombie, and we've got number 96, the Chaos version, which is Dark Storm. In this one, we have a Malefic Red Eyes Black Dragon. There's one of the Time Lord monsters. There's one train support. There's a Bus Blader in there. You have a Danger monster. An Earthbound, a Fluffle Dolphin, a Vanguard monster. We also have the Prankids Link monster. These have unlocked quite a few cards that I'm quite interested to see what support we've got coming with them. So we're going to start off with the Subterra packs. The reason I've gone for those is their effects are nice and easy. When they're flipped face up, they then activate a certain ability and then they can actually be flipped face down again. So their effects can always be reset. This, we've got a number 53 Heart Earth. There's a couple of Subterra monsters and some Generator monsters. In this pack, they're mostly Subterras and Generators. So this will be a common theme. There was an Infernity trap card in there, as I could see. We have just a couple of Subterras, nothing particularly that special. one of the higher level ones, the level 11 one, was in that one, the one at the end. We have a number 102, which is decent as an Xyz monster. This is Star Seraph Sentry. Here we have Cyber Dragon support. There's a Subterra, there's Generator Field Spell in there. There's also a Synchro Trap card, which helps to revive them. There's a Destiny Hero support card and some more Subterra monsters. We have Subterra supports, the Blue Boy monster, and we've got a Judgment card. It's to support the Fairy archetypes. That's one of the biggest Subterra monsters that is there. So we've also got a Generator monster and a Kawakimeru. Krebons, I absolutely love that monster. It has the ability, whenever your opponent attacks it, you pay 800 life points, you negate that attack, and it can be activated multiple times within a turn. One of the most powerful tuner monsters I can think of. There is a Dark World monster, and we finally got the Link to Subterra monster. This, we have the Bujin monsters, so they work in an archetype where you can have one of their Beast Warriors face up, and you've got a load of support cards which will either increase your monster's attack points, reduce your opponent's monsters, or protect your monsters from any type of effect. We have Vision Hero in there. There is a Thunderclap Wolf, and we have a Mist Archfiend. It has 2,400 attack points, but if it's normal summoned, it actually, I think, self-destructs and inflicts 1,000 damage to you. This one seems to have evolved into an ultra rare, so hopefully we'll get something decent. There's a Harpy Queen, one of the Armed Dragon supports, another one of the Subterra monsters, a decent one. This one, I believe, banishes when it's split face up. And we've unlocked the Pap, which specialises in the Armed Dragons. We've got a GX ally, we've got a Triamid card, the Sioux ships, another one of the boss Subterra monsters, there's two of those in there. There's a Tail Swipe, there's an Xyz Slidolphin, there is another couple of the stronger Subterra monsters. And I'm just having a look at what that pack entails. It's just some of the Ojama stuff as well as the Prankins monsters. And we're going to see how much of those we've got. We're still missing a few of the key pieces in here. Even some of the most basic ones we're still missing. We're going to claim for some more of the rewards. That's enough to start going back to the shop again. And we've got an ultra rare in this. There's a skyscraper, we've got the support, and there's also the evolved version of instant fusion. It's like an upgraded version. We have the Vision Hero monsters, and that's okay. There's a Pendulograph card which supports the Pendulum spellcaster monsters. This one's less impressive. There's anything that I can see that's that decent. There's a Bonding H2O type of card which is meant to support Bastion's Water Dragon archetype. Another example of a couple of Kwakemero cards. They're quite decent when used successfully, but they can be quite limiting in that you do have to constantly show your hand to reveal cards to keep those monsters on the field. Either that or you have to get rid of Iron Core. We've got a Guardian Kaest in there, there's one of the ice monsters, finally we got the Subterra Guru, and there's an Infernoid monster. In this we have a Trickstar monster, we have a Dynamist, there's a Super Heavy not a Super Heavy Samurai, there is one of the 6 Samurais, there's a Junk Defender monster, and we have this thing, a countered trap called Parthian Shot, as well as the Generator field spell. We have a Dragoonity monster in there, there's a couple of the boss Subterras, and finally we've got a Gimmick Puppet monster. Those are one of my favourite archetypes, so I'll definitely be looking at picking those up soon. And there's the pack for them. Colossus Mech. There's nothing that special in here. There's a Generator monster, you've got a Ghost Trick in there, a couple of support for the Subterras, and Infernity Beast as well, that's useful for the Infernity archetypes. I'm trying to build a Subterra deck, but from the looks of it, it doesn't seem to be there's enough cards to support the deck. Or at least I don't have any additional support outside of their archetype that synergizes in any way. And we're going to quickly have a look at the event. Unfortunately, the time of recording, it was just slightly before the event itself, so I'll have those in some future episodes. But we're just covering some of what the decks entail. So you've got the Fluunderies monsters. And we're going to start on the duels, see where we get with the starter deck. I'm going to start off as second. I prefer going second because that way I can hopefully see what my opponent is playing and then deal with them however I need to. In the starting hand we've got Blue Eyes White Dragon, the Dark Hexil Fusion, Kaiser Glider, the Flute of Summoning Dragons and Ring of Destruction. The opening hand itself isn't really that good, there's only one monster I'm able to summon, but at least I've got the trap card as backup to support it. My opponent's taking their time on their turn, which is fine, you know, I understand. Depends on what they're playing or whether they've just played and maybe they don't have the experience yet. They eventually decide on Gemnite Garnet in attack mode. It's 1900 attack points, so it's very powerful for a level 4 monster. I ended up drawing into Luster Dragon, which matches its attack points. I'll summon that straight away into attack mode from my hand to the field, and I'll just crash over their monster. The reason I do that is if it's just used as part of a tribute, then it's no longer available to do so unless they can revive it from the graveyard. It's more about preventing their advantage than to enable me to be disadvantaged. My opponent starts off with another Gem Knight monster, but it's got 0 attack points. So I believe he's just trolling me. And someone needs to really explain to me why he's attacking me directly with something that can't actually do damage. I draw into my Divine Dragon Ragnarok, and I'll instantly summon it. I'll attack them and it'll cause 1,500 points of damage. I don't even know why it was left in attack mode. It's got 2,100 defense. It would have been able to get past a lot of my level 4 monsters. My opponent's taking quite a while on their turn. I don't know why. Perhaps they're having issues with the monsters they've got in the hand, or they've bricked badly. They end up going with a World Chalice monster, and I decide to stop that immediately by using Ring of Destruction. I might take 1,800 points of damage, but then again so do they. And since they'd already taken my attack from the Divine Dragon Ragnarok previously, that means they're even weaker than they were prior to the start of the turn. My opponent then ends their turn. I draw into my Lancer Dragonaut, but I decide to normal summon the Dark Hex Seal Fusion. With its effect, I'm able to then fuse the two monsters together to bring out King Dragoon. The nice thing about this card is it's able to instantly go into your fusion monsters without requiring too many specific other monsters. The kind of downside of it is that it requires both monsters to be on the field, or if not, it can still be used as part of fusion material, but you would have to go through the traditional route of using polymerization as the fusion card. The beauty of King Dragoon is it has the option to not only protect your monsters from spell and trap effects, but once per turn it can special summon any monster that doesn't have to meet any sort of special summoning requirements. So from this, I have the opportunity to summon my Blue Eyes White Dragon. And I'll attack directly with both monsters. From this upgrade we get 100 gems, so that's quite useful. and 2,200 points of experience. So in this duel we start off with Twin-Headed Behemoth, Kid Motor Dragon, Kaiser Glider, Stamping Destruction, and Ring of Destruction. Stamping Destruction is a spell card which can only be activated when you have a face-up dragon type monster on your field, and it has the option to destroy one of your opponent's back row cards, spell or trap cards, and then inflict a further 500 points of damage as effect damage. I decide to just set the Twin-Headed Behemoth face down in defense mode, and to set the Ring of Destruction in case they have anything that can overpower it. My opponent seems to be running a Cyber Dragon style of and Cyber Dart style of deck, and so they activate the Cybernetic Horizon, allowing them to pick up a card. They then use their Future Fusion, which in the next couple of turns will enable them to fuse probably either a Cyber Dart Dragon or a Cyber Darkness Dragon. They activate the effect of their Cyber Dart Claw, enabling them to pick up any of their spell or trap support. And then they go into their Cyber Dart monster. This one has the ability to discard a card to then bring forth Power Bond. They use the effect of their Cyber Dart Claw monster to then search out for their other Cyber Dart monsters. I know generally how the Cyber Dart deck likes to play, so I'm not too concerned about it. Generally, the whole idea is to get to the 2 fusion boss monsters and to have those monsters bulked up to as high attack points as possible by removing certain monsters from the extras deck straight to the graveyard. They can equip those, and if they're highly powerful, then those monsters could end up being 5,000 plus attack monsters. It's part of an OTK type of strategy. Anyway, they do pick up and summon their Cyber Dart Keel, which will then equip one of their Cyber Darts from the graveyard. They then proceed to battle, at which point I decide I don't really want to be dealing with that Cyber Dart Keel's effect. Its effect enables it to, when it destroys an opponent's monster in battle, inflict a further 300 points of effect damage. Unfortunately, because Ring of Destruction works on your opponent's monster's original attack, not any boosts, it only affects them for 800 points of damage, rather than the 2,400 points with the addition of the other Cyber Dart monster attached. I then go straight into my Stamping Destruction. I want to get rid of that Future Fusion as soon as possible to prevent it from being used. Even if it's not fully used, the thing is, if it was allowed to activate its first bit of the effect during this turn, he would be able to pitch a number of monsters to the graveyard, and that will help deck thin, that will help bring out some of the easier, more powerful cards from the deck to the hand without running specific searching cards. I decide to normal summon the Dark Hexil Fusion and attack their monster. That card has its own effect, which then pitches a separate monster to the graveyard, and I will attack using the Twin-Headed Behemoth. My opponent chooses just to set one card face down before ending their turn. This to me signifies that they probably don't have anything, so I'm gonna probably just tribute over my Hexil Fusion to summon the Kaiser Glider. It's meant to max out the damage a little bit more. It's just under what's needed, they're left with 700 points. My opponent activates the Cybernetic Horizon spell card, which enables him to then normal summon a Cyber Dart monster. They then search out for their Power Bond spell card and use its effect. My opponent's connection seems to have gone a little bit, so they end up eventually fusing it into the Cyber Darkness Dragon, which requires 5 non-specific targets, whereas the other one requires Keel, Edge, and Horn. There are 2 effects which are resolving, so the first seems to just seems to pitch something, and this one equips onto the monster. Using this monster's effect, it's able to then ditch a card from either the extra deck or the deck to then hopefully boost this monster up. It gains 100 attack points for every monster in the graveyard. So I do take quite a bit of damage, but since I survive the turn and Twin-Headed Behemoth comes back, with the downside of Power Bond, he's going to take more damage than he has life points left. Even using the Cyber Darkness Dragon's effect to remove his equipped monster to negate the summon of my monster and its effect isn't going to make any difference. And there you go, the 2000 points of effect damage from Power Bond hit at the end phase. And in this case I do rank up again because it's still a very low rank. I'm then going to claim a few more rewards just to see what I can get. And we're going to pick up the duel pass from this. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. If you are, please like and comment. It would really help to support the channel. If you can't do those things, I would love for you to watch my other video content. It really helps to support whether you like the channel or not. I am mostly Yu-Gi-Oh based. I do cover some other things from time to time, but it's mostly Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. And any other news relating to some of the other anime stuff and general opinions on things I leave to my other channels, which I'll have linked as well down below. We're going to be opening a few of these Subterra packs. There's a Karakuri Castle, which is the field spell. We've got a couple of the Hidden City field spell, that's Subterra support. There's a generator in there, there's a Notorious Spider, there's a Battle Wasp trap card, which is a very small archetype of insect type monsters. They were used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 Synchro era. Come on, let's get a good pack. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so Torrential Tribute is good. A couple of the big Subterras are good. There's the Searcher for the Buster Blader. And we also have that Spirit looking card is actually a machine type, and it has the ability to make your opponent's monsters attack points, regardless of what they are, turn to 100. It's a very decent effect. In this we have a Lunalight Wolf, we've got a Gimmick Puppet Monster, we've got a Thousand Eyes Restrict, and a couple of Subterras. And this has unlocked the Toon Kingdom cards, the Toon archetype. This we have some more of the Distraction Swordsman, so that's Buster Blader support. We have Star Seraph. There is some Subterra support. And that's all we seem to have. Let's have a final tally of what we're missing. So far we are quite good with most cards. I think we're missing about 3 in total, which is okay, it's not too bad. I think realistically only one of those cards we're missing is the Subterra. At which point I think we can start dueling again, seeing if we can increase our score. And to increase the gems collected. So in this one we're going first. Hopefully I can have a decent starting hand. And we begin with Lust Dragon, we have Blue as White Dragon, there's Kidmodo Dragon, Ring of Destruction, and Threatening Roar. Threatening Roar has the effect in which you can activate it to stop any of your opponent's monsters from attacking during that turn. The nice thing about it is it's better than things such as Negate Attack, because that can only be activated specifically during the battle phase, whereas this can be responded to if it's being destroyed by things such as Mystical Space Typhoon. You can just flip it over, that way it wastes your opponent's spell and trap destruction effects whilst preserving your life points and your monsters. It's a chicken game field spell. This to me suggests it's a trolling style of deck, because most players who rely on this card for their draw power tend to run Exodia style decks or things to that nature. They've activated their Upstart Goblin, so they give you 1,000 life points. In exchange, they get to draw an additional card. And they've activated second Upstart Goblin and their Pseudo Space. By destroying the chicken game and removing it, they can then trigger off its effect again to draw an additional card. They then summon a Royal Magical Library, which is exactly what I thought. This is definitely an Exodia deck. My opponent then activates their Magical Mallet, which is going to exchange however many cards they want back into the deck, and then they draw the same number of cards. I activate my Ring of Destruction because frankly, I don't want to allow that play to go off. By getting rid of Royal Magical Library, they're reducing their abilities to draw additional cards. Because when 3 spell cards are activated, it generates 3 counters, spell counters. By removing those spell counters, you can then draw an additional card. This is not a hard once per turn, it can be activated multiple times. So long as you can activate more than 3 spell cards in a turn, you're constantly building advantage. My opponent decides to shuffle back all 4 of their cards, hoping that they get something decent. They then activate their Reload, which is the same as Magical Mallet, it's just in a quick play form, and it's actually older than Magical Mallet. But they decide actually to just give up, then I don't think even if they'd used it, they wouldn't have gotten the advantage necessary to push them further with their Exodia win condition. And we've moved up from Bronze Tier 5 to Bronze Tier 4 with an additional 100 gems. I've won this one, so in this case I will be going second. And we'll see what deck we're going to be facing. Hopefully we'll be able to exchange this deck soon enough to something a little bit more powerful, We start off with the Blue Eyes White Dragon, the Dark Hexil Fusion, 2 copies of Stamping Destruction and Threatening Roar. The only thing I'm going to be able to do, unless I draw into something decent, is to just set that Dark Hexil Fusion and the Threatening Roar. My opponent summons a Gemlite monster. It's just a normal one. It's got 1,200 attack points, so it's not of any particular threat. And I'm going to be drawing into a Flute of Summoning Dragons, which at the moment is just useless. Like I said, the only thing I can really do is to set my monster and to set the Threatening Roar. The opponent doesn't seem to understand what they're doing. They're taking a bit of time, and then they eventually just summon a Chosen by the World Chalice. That's just a normal monster. Since it has the same attack points as my monster's defense points, there isn't any point of me wasting my trap card. I draw into my Fusion Substitute, which is quite useless at the moment. I've just drawn into some very bad cards. I can't do anything, I have to just force to end my turn. My opponent just ends up disconnecting, unfortunately. There's a communication error. I have no idea how that duel would have gone, but based on how they were playing their cards, I think they would have basing it off a start deck as well. And I've ranked up from Bronze Tier 4 to Bronze Tier 3. With an extra 100 gems. I think now, since I'm looking for the gimmick puppets and we've got barely any cards left within the archetype for the Subterrors that I'm missing, we're going to be starting off with those gimmick puppets. We've got a couple of good ones in there. We've got Egghead, we've got Scissor Arms, but we've also got the Chaos Dyson Sphere, which I can't even summon as of yet. Second one, there's supposed to be guaranteed secret rare in there. There's a Chronometry card, there's a Scissors Arms, there's another of the spell cards for the gimmick puppets. There's an Xyz monster, which is okay. I believe that's a rank 8. But none of those are that good. We've not seen any of the actual Xyz monsters that they rely on. So I'm going to go back into hopefully some duels. We'll quickly have an update of the deck, see if there's any support cards we can add to it. There's a couple of trap cards that I can consider. So we've got Torrential Tribute, I think that's a good one. Definitely going with Call of the Haunted, just as a way of reviving some of the monsters. Dust Tornado to eliminate my opponent's spell and trap cards. Now back to the dueling action. I wonder whether these updates will actually improve the deck any. I think, considering the nature of the deck, even with these slight improvements, it's not going to make too much difference. I'll start the turn. Obviously, I've got my Luster Dragon in hand, I've got my Lance of Dragonaut, my Flute of Summoning Dragon, a Ring of Destruction, and Threatening Roar. None of the cards which I introduced within the deck have actually surfaced to my hand. My opponent decides to set a couple of cards face down, and they end their turn. So with my draw phase, I end up drawing into a Divine Dragon Ragnarok, I think the aim for me is to do as much damage as I can. So that's why I go straight into the Luster Dragon and attack directly. I'll then set my Ring of Destruction face down and my Threatening Roar. My opponent activates Lightning Storm. I wonder what they're going to aim, whether that's going to be the monster or the face downs. They opt for my face up monster, which I don't understand considering they would have increased the advantage they got by ripping away the 2 cards rather than the 1, but I'm not my opponent. I don't know their logic or how they're planning to think about it. Maybe they thought my back rows weren't that important, or maybe that they were blanks like fakes. They summon their own Divine Dragon Ragnarok. I decide immediately to reduce the amount of damage I'm going to take, use Ring of Destruction to inflict multiple damage to both of us. Since my opponent's on lower life points anyway, it's going to affect them worse than it's going to affect me. And I was baited. My opponent had a face down Call of the Haunted, in which they're going to revive the Divine Dragon Ragnarok, and they're still going to attack me directly. I draw into my Axe Dragonauts, the Lancer one, so since I've got 2 of those, I might as well play one of those face down defense mode. Actually, I decide to go straight into attack to prevent them from tributing over that monster and crash the 2 together. My opponent then activates their Silver's Cry, so they're able to re-summon any normal monster from their graveyard back to the field. They bring back the Divine Dragon Ragnarok. And they tribute over it to bring out their Kaiser Glider. I activate my threatening roar, so it'll give me a turn to protect myself. I ironically draw into my Kaiser Glider this time, but I have no means of summoning it since I don't have any monsters already on the field. I have no choice but to set my Lancer Dragonaut in face down defense mode and end the turn. My opponent is very lucky, they draw into an Axe Dragonaut, so it's got 2000 attack points. It does come with the weakness of if it attacks, it then is forced into defense mode. It only has 1200 defense, so most types of monsters can get over that card. But I think they just wanted to clear my monsters so they can attack directly and do as much damage. I draw into a Luster Dragon, but I opt to summon the Divine Dragon Ragnarok just to clear my opponent's monster in defense mode. And I'll end my turn there. My opponent seems to have just set a card and then attacks using their Kaiser Glider. I'm going to take another 900 points of damage. I draw into my Lord of Dragons, which is actually perfect considering I've got the Flute of Summoning Dragons in hand. I'll summon it straight away. By activating the flute, I aim to summon both the Luster Dragon and the Kaiser Glider to the field in attack position. I try and attack over my opponent's Kaiser Glider with mine, but I forget actually using its effect. Any monster with the same attack points as it cannot destroy it in battle. It's a misstep that I forgot about that side of its effect. I know the main side of it, the effect is when it's destroyed, it returns one of your opponent's monsters from the field to the hand. I just forgot about that first part. And it seems to be a key mistake considering all of my monsters are in attack position. I'm going to be taking damage. My opponent then miraculously uses their own Flute of Summoning Dragon to special summon a Luster Dragon to the field. I don't understand what the point of that was, rather than just flexing. Perhaps because you can just normal summon it, it's a level 4 monster, it doesn't have any conditions that have to be met. So the only thing I can think of is it's just the opponent kind of trolling me, flexing on me, whatever phrase you like to think of. I've only got a couple of turns, well, I've only got this turn really to survive, if anything. I'm forced to react by essentially just setting the twin-headed behemoth and attacking with my Kaiser Glider. First I'll attack, do some damage. But actually I choose not to do anything with the monster. By keeping it in my hand, it's a guarantee if I need to deal with it in any other situation. My opponent then sets a card and ends their turn. I've drawn into Ring of Destruction. That is probably the worst draw I could have gone into, because even though it will be an out for my opponent's cards, it will also defeat me. I only have 900 life points, my opponent has 4,100. They will withstand that damage. I, on the other hand, will not. So I set it just as bait, and I end my turn there. It seems I can't catch a break. My opponent has a Stamping Destruction which they use. That means not only do I lose my Ring of Destruction, but I take another 500 points of damage. I am so close to being defeated. And then of course they activate back to square one. This spell card means that by discarding a card in their hand, they're able to send my Kaiser Glider back to the top of my deck. And with a free field, they can attack directly using the Kaiser Glider. So this is an example of how a mirror match would work with this starter deck. This one has probably made a couple of adaptations and changes to it, and so have I. It just seems that they managed to get their better cards off more quickly than I could, or at least they played their cards better than I could. I remember actually getting back to square one. I have got a few of those copies of those cards. I purchased quite a while ago when they were first released. I love the card and the idea because you force your opponent to then redraw into that monster, and if they've put a lot of resources into those cards, it can be frustrating from your opponent's end. It's a simple effect, but it's actually a good way of dealing with quite a few monsters that are protected from destruction, because it's just a return style of effect. It doesn't destroy, it doesn't banish, it doesn't do anything like that. It's a more simplistic type of effect. But some of those underlying effects are those that tend to be forgotten about and are decent counters for opponents' bigger monsters and threats. In this duel, I start off with a Blue Eyes White Dragon. I've got Komodo Dragon, Lord of Dragons, Lancer Dragonaut, and Silver's Cry. This is a decent enough starting hand, and there's definitely a couple of ways I can go with it. My opponent starts off with a Blade Knight in attack mode, and that's it. I draw into a Kaiser Glider. At the moment, that's not that good. I mean, it's not something I can summon immediately. So I opt to just set my Kidmodo Dragon. And go to my end phase, ending my turn. My opponent's normal summoned an Evil Swarm monster. It's got 1,950 attack points, which is very decent. So it seems they're running a beat stick style of deck. But unfortunately, getting over my Kidmodo Dragon isn't going to help them. All it's going to do is let me special summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon from my hand. My opponent manages to activate Raigeki, which is like, are you kidding me? How you had that already in your hand? But I do have the Silver's Cry, so I can actually revive the Blue Eyes White Dragon easily. And ironically, the card which defeated me in the previous duel, back to square one, is now in my hand. But I just don't need it for the time being. Silver's Cry activates, reviving the Blue Eyes White Dragon from the graveyard back to the field. I'll set my Lancer Dragon out so I can perhaps use it as a tribute for a future turn. And the first thing I'll do is I'll attack over the Evil Swarm monster, considering that has more attack points than my monster's defense points. My opponent then sets a monster face down, and they choose to try and attack into my face down defense position monster, of which they'll take another 200 points of reflect damage. I draw into a second Lancer Dragonet, but I choose to tribute over my first Lancer Dragonet to summon the Kaiser Glider. The second card, if you're wondering what that was, it's one of the Aesir support cards. It's one of these Nordic monsters. It's got 2000 attack and defense, but it can't really be summoned without having another Nordic monster on the field, which is why they set it, because it self-destructs if there's no other monster on the field with that name. My opponent chooses to set a monster. And they activate their Monster Reborn. They take my Kid Modo Dragon. I don't understand why, unless they're running some dragon support themselves. But even still, its effect won't work on their side, it will actually work on mine, because it's my monster that they've taken. I draw into a second copy of Lord of D. I'll summon the first one just because it has the protection effect for my other dragon monsters. The other two monsters are classified as dragons. Starting off with Lord of Dragons to defeat the Kid Modo Dragon. Second attack I decided with Kaiser Glider because I thought 2400 will be enough to get rid of a decent defensive monster, and it happens to be a second Kid Modo Dragon. And a direct attack with my Blue Eyes White Dragon. My opponent sets a card, and they normal summon the Chosen by the World Chalice. They're going to go over my Lord of Dragons. It's only going to be 400 points of damage. I draw into my Call of the Haunted, so this is one of the cards that I recently introduced into the deck. I'll summon the Lord of Dragons just in case, but I don't think their back row is that threatening. And proceed to the battle phase. Blue Eyes White Dragon, attack. Use White Lightning. It causes 1400 points of damage, so that's fine, and hopefully this will just be one-off